Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast. We're your hosts, Monte Wyatt and Paul Szynski. Wherever you are in life, there is a higher ceiling. This podcast is how you become aware of it and how to take action to push through it. It's time to discover your ceiling. Before we get into this month's episode, here's a short message from Adding Zero's Executive Development. As CEO, you demand performance and results from your team. If you're committed to developing a cohesive, driven organization that achieves successful outcomes every single month, we need to talk. It's time to see how organizational and executive development from Adding Zeros can help. We focus on strategic planning, executive coaching, team alignment and engagement, organizational culture, and clarity of implementation. Contact Monte Wyatt by booking an appointment at www.addZerosNow.com. That's ADDZEROSNOW.com, AddZerosNow.com. If you're ready, now is the time. I have a few coaching spots available for 2025. Lock in your team today. Now let's begin today's episode. Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast, where we talk about your health, your family, your business. I'm your host, Monte Wyatt.
And Paul Szynski.
If you're a CEO, executive, or business owner, then this is the show for you. We call our audience the Achiever because you're always striving for the next level. It is a great privilege to have our guest with us today. He's been about financials, business growth, turning around businesses. Andrew Howell is growing small businesses his entire career. He has a passion for building better business, and he has experience working in mid-market as a consultant and in private equity. Andrew currently is the owner and chief financial officer of Best Portable Toilets, a growing mobile sanitation business headquartered here in Des Moines, Iowa. And Andrew has held many roles in private equity industry, from integration to financial support. So Andrew Howell, welcome to What's Your Ceiling?
Thanks, Monty. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Yes. Looking forward to the conversation. We were talking briefly just a few moments ago, and there's a lot of great stories I'm looking forward to sharing. We always like to start our show with a theme, a topic, and the topic for today is knowing your numbers.
Great.
So Paul, when you hear the phrase knowing your numbers, what does that mean to you?
That's a critical part of any business that you're running. Knowing your numbers. If you don't know where you're at, you don't know where you're going. So knowing your numbers is the start of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Andrew, how about you when you hear knowing your numbers?
Yeah, I would say, there's two risks really with knowing numbers. The first one is you don't know them, which is a big risk and a big problem in a lot of businesses. I'd say the second one is you focus on too many things, right? Where you're managing too many numbers. I know we were just talking about this, but typically in any business that I've seen or been in, there tends to be 3 to 5, maybe 10 things that really matter, and that's really what you should be managing on a daily, monthly, weekly cadence. And I think a lot of folks, especially financial folks like me, can sometimes get in minutia that doesn't matter when you know your numbers.
I like that remark, Andrew, but let's dig into that just a little bit. You've been in the private equity business. Now you spun off and bought a company, and now you're scaling that company. So you have a lot of experience. Let's talk about, we talk about top line revenue, adjusted gross revenue, then net profit, and net profit margins. If you were to say, what are the 2 or 3 or 4 critical numbers you dig into if you're looking at a financial statement, what would you say those are?
Well, it's interesting. So I actually, when I'm looking at a business, Paul, I don't even start with financials. I go and I start talking with people, right? The actual people in the business, because a lot of from my perspective, understanding the business unit economics, right? So quantity of one, whatever we're doing. I don't care if we're shipping a widget. I don't care if we're serving a customer. I don't care if we're servicing a toilet, right? Understanding at the base level, answering the basic question. If we do this one thing, are we profitable? Yes or no, right? And that's a binary answer typically. But, in my experience, a lot of the numbers that you're trying to manage to drive financial results. The financial results themselves tend to take care of themselves if you're managing the other metrics that matter. And so my job as a financial leader is just being able to translate that, right? So in any business function, right? Let's say, as an example, I'm a manufacturing business, right? KPIs that we might be managing could be things like machine hours, labor, could be things like inputs, could be things like, quantity manufactured per hour, whatever that metric is, that's going to translate into some success, right? So in our business, I would say, we look at, 3 to 5 metrics, right? We're looking at asset utilization, right? We're effectively a rental business, right? So that's a financial metric, right? But then, in order to get asset utilization, we're managing that by understanding toilets deployed, trailers deployed.
Hey,
et cetera.
talk a little bit about your business before,
Yeah.
and then back into those numbers. if
Sure.
you would. Talk about what you do. How, you've obviously bought the business. You've scaled it quite fast. Tell us, kind of back into it, and then come back to those numbers and
Sure.
what you look for.
Yeah, so Best Portable Toilets, we're a mobile sanitation business headquartered here in Des Moines, Iowa. I laugh, I kind of backed into the sanitation business in a lot of ways. So if we go, kind of way back in my career, I've done a lot of things, but I was kind of a jack of all trades, master of none for a while, but have always been, in and out of some financial function. But started my career at Deloitte, as an auditor, and I lasted 12 months in assurance because it's a tough business, and but it's a great training ground, and really parlayed that experience I went to CLA as a financial consultant, specifically in their private equity services group. Spent 5 years there doing a bunch of different activities, mostly related to supporting portfolio companies of portfolio or of private equity funds. I would say that the main learning from that was, understanding, coming into organizations, parachuting in, bringing a team of people, and building financial processes, systems and processes with these businesses, and eventually got recruited out of that function into a private equity fund itself. They had raised a few $1 billion and were buying large industrial manufacturing businesses around the U.S. Spent a few years there cutting my teeth with people that were conservatively twice as smart as I was. Which was a great opportunity for me to understand and learn how people operate at a high level, and how you become successful in business, and parlayed that experience into finding and operating this company, Best Portable Toilets. So my business partner and I bought Best Portable Toilets in September of 2024. The business itself really has 3 primary business segments. We have, what everybody kind of knows us for, which is the portable toilet side of our business. We have about 3,000 portable toilet units deployed here across central and eastern Iowa. The restroom trailer portion of our business, so that's anything from a golf tournament to a large scale construction site. Those really nice luxury restroom trailers that are heated, cooled, and then the last portion of our business is commercial pumping. So anything liquid non-hazardous in the state of Iowa, we can pump and haul to a waste disposal site. So really those 3 primary business segments, each one has different KPIs that we manage on a weekly, daily, monthly basis. And each business segment, has a unique need to grow. And so really understanding the needs of your business, of what consolidates the whole is really important. And I think really understanding, again, what drives the business at a molecular level, so at a unit economics level is very, very helpful to understand, hey, what should I be focused on a daily basis? It comes back to, managing the things that are really important in your business and ignoring the minutia.
That's interesting. So you step back in a macro way, and then you jump into the weeds of you're looking what drives your revenue, right? 100%. That's where you're going.
Yeah. So it's, again, when we're focused on KPIs, it could be something that's driving revenue, could be something that's driving costs in our business, right? So, with anything, and maybe if we back up here even a little farther, Paul, I think what's really important for everybody to hear in their business is there's really 2 things I think you have to understand at the most basic level. Number one, how does a dollar travel through your organization? So when I ask that question to most executives, they all spout the sales cycle. That's great. That's half your business, right? That's how you're driving revenue. How does a dollar travel through your organization from an expense perspective, right? And so, again, a lot of people don't start with that, and that's really where most dollars start in a business, right? Again, I'm running a manufacturing business. That path of a dollar starts when I purchase inventory, right? That sits on your balance sheet, that you're doing something to, travels through your organization, travels through your financials, that eventually comes out as an expense that then you sell to generate profit. And so in a service business, it operates much the same way. It's just more people focused, right? We start with people. So Understanding at a molecular level, again, how a dollar travels through your organization from an expense perspective, from a revenue perspective, super important. Understanding your organization from a unit economics level. Again, quantity of one. Am I profitable? It would shock you when you ask that question many times, especially what we were hearing was, well, we need scale to be profitable. Well, if you're not profitable at volume of one, that sounds like a going out of business plan to me. That's not a business plan, right? So we have to understand, hey, if we're profitable, are we marginally profitable? Are we highly profitable? What levers can we pull within the, again, unit economic level, volume of one? What lever can we really pull to generate more profit? Can we pull a price lever? Can we pull an expense lever? What lever can we pull, right, that's going to drive more profit? So as we scale the organization, right, we're not scaling it in an appropriate way, right? We're maintaining and conserving value for our business.
That's interesting. That great way of explaining it. So let's talk about this. You've seen in the private equity space, you've seen very profitable businesses, and you've seen businesses that need a lot of help. Can you talk about a business that you've went into and had to restructure it to basically probably save it, I'm guessing, and get it to a profitable? And tell me where there's a tipping point of when there's nothing you can do for the company. And then tell me about a very profitable and taking it to another level.
Sure.
Could you give us kind of those three different scenarios?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. And from a business, first of all, businesses have a multitude of challenges, but, from a turnaround perspective, what's quite interesting about these businesses is typically, at least in my career, I've seen a few different types of issues: structural issues and solvable issues, right? So sometimes businesses have problems that we can't solve, right? So what would those problems be? Could be an industry problem, right? Hey, maybe there's a mass consolidator in your industry that has some significant competitive moat, whether that's a cost structure, whether that's IP, whether that's, again, something that would be very hard for us to compete with. It's a structural challenge, right? There's a reason why your business is probably unprofitable from that perspective. Then there's a bunch of solvable challenges, right? And those vary widely. Could be we have a cost structure issue. Could be we have a culture issue. Could be we have a product issue. And again, challenges of all sizes. I mean, we've seen Intel, one of the largest companies in the world, have a product issue, right? I mean, these are not agnostic to small business. Large businesses have these problems too, right? And so, but a lot of times, if it's not a structural challenge, whether it's your industry or whether it's a structure problem within your organization, if it's a solvable problem, right, then again, we have to focus on the 3 to 5 things that matter in our business, right? What actually is driving the business forward, what's actually driving the profitability of our business. A lot of times it's people. We would walk into a lot of organizations where there was a structural culture problem, right? Whether it was undermanaged, whether it was bad leadership, whatever that was, got to solve that problem first. Got to lead with people, right? Doesn't matter whether you're manufacturing a widget, providing a service, building software, whatever. It all starts with people. Once we've figured out, or once you can solve the culture problem, which again, by the way, guys, it does not happen overnight. It's a long road to solve culture, right? And it starts with showing up every day. And again, it doesn't matter if I'm Tom Brady leading the New England Patriots, or it doesn't matter if I'm Andrew Howell leading Best Portable Toilets, right? It's about showing up every day for your people, being present. A lot of those things take time. Build trust with your organization. That doesn't happen overnight. But again, once you figured that out, and once you solved the culture piece, then again, figuring out those 3 to 5 things. Again, maybe we have a structural cost problem. Hey, maybe our raw material inputs, when's the last time we've bid out raw material vendors? When's the last time that we've looked down our P&L and said, hey, why are we spending $2,000 a month on laundry or whatever it is, right? And just asking basic questions of why, right, to leaders within the organization can get you a long way, right? But again, understanding those basic daily activities that we're doing, right, and asking basic questions of, can we do it better? Can we do it faster? Can we do it longer? Whatever it is, that's ultimately going to drive those unit economics in your business, right? That's what we can manage. That's what we focus on, and that's the most important things. Everything else, those 85% of activities that you're focused on a daily basis that probably aren't driving any value, got to get rid of those, got to move out of those activities, right? Might be important for daily business functions, but not important for leaders to focus on.
Okay, great comment. Now, Monty and I talk about it all the time. You know, it starts with the people. And I mean, it's 100%. We agree. Culture, people, and putting the people on the right seat on the bus makes everything work. The wrong people can put a pretty good clog, and it doesn't take very many of them. It just takes one or two, and you got issues. So you've been into this situation where you went in and you see a culture, and that's probably stagnates. Probably 80% of it is right there. How do you go into a business, you identify that cultural problem? Do you obviously, you got to have people work. So if you start cleaning up the people issue, kind of tell us a little bit about a situation where you had to go in and clean up and then bring people in, because, another thing, there's break points in every company.
Sure.
There's the person that breaks $1 million, and then you get to 3 million, then you get to 8 to 10, and then you get 15 to 25, then you get to 50 million is another break point. 75 million is a break point. 100 million is a break point. And then once you get to 75 million, you're going to have to pay a CEO come in for $1 million. CEO can't run a $5 million company, but he can run a $75 million company. And I want you to talk a little bit about that, but I want you to start with the people of where you had to go in, clean up the people, how long it took before we got profitable, and then come back and talk about the break points and the talent.
Absolutely. So one important thing to understand, I think, in any organization is speed is an asset. And whether you're in a business that's losing money, whether you're in a business that's profitable, speed is an asset. And quick decision making is an asset. And so, again, I've been in situations in my career where businesses are not profitable, and you just don't have time to focus on things that don't matter. So in those types of situations, right, again, in my experience, when you're present as a leader and you're not sitting in your ivory tower in your corner office every day and you're actually boots on the ground with your people, right, everybody knows and understands who those folks are that are driving division in your business, right? Mm-hmm. Typically, in my experience, it's not typically a large swath of people. Typically, it's a few, mm-hmm. right? Identifying those people quickly and making quick decisions vastly benefits your business, right? Understanding that there will be short-term pain and that everybody's on the same page. But it's amazing what transparency and trust does for an organization. Again, walking into an organization and asking people basic questions, right? Understanding, having these folks understand that what they're doing on a daily basis is very important, right? Getting the feedback from them, hearing them, right? And then understanding where these challenges are. Again, as a business, I'm a simple guy. I'm not very smart, right? I have to break things down into the most simple matrices possible, right? And so as a business, right, we really have two main responsibilities with people, right? The first one is we have to provide them tools to do their job successfully, right? That is very important as a business. The second thing that we have to provide is the expectations for our employees, right? Those two things are highly important for people. On the employee side, what do they have to bring? Well, they have to bring certain skills to do the job, and they have to bring motivation, right? They got to want to be there, because if they don't want to be there, we've all had those folks that don't really want to be there, right? And it becomes a drag on your organization. So if employees bring skills and motivation, and me as an employer bring the tools and the expectations, right? That sets us up for basic level success, right? So again, being able to come into an organization and identifying the areas where maybe we have expectation gaps or maybe we have tool gaps, understanding what those are and making quick decisions around that, understanding that there absolutely will be short-term pain, right? Banding together as a team generates a lot of trust amongst your organization,
Absolutely.
right? And that's what builds the foundation to be able to get you to build on, right? Again, these are small daily incremental wins that you're compounding over time, right? People talk about overnight successes. There's no such thing,
No.
right? Overnight successes are built on foundations of trust that took years, months, days, hours to build.
Yeah. And I like the fact what you said in regards to making quick decisions. even and I find this because everybody gets paralyzed and they think about it a day, 2 or 3 days, or a week when they should have just made the decision. It may not be the best decision, but it's the decision to move the needle forward. And if you can move the needle forward, even if it's not the best decision, it gets the compound effect. You're going to get better and better and better as you go. And I think, and listening to you, and I have a business friend, we do business, and we always start with, when there's a situation, is what is the truth? Start with the truth, because everything's gray. And you go back to that foundation of what the truth is, no matter how ugly it is, you're going to get better. But if you don't go back to that truth, you'll never get better. You got to face the people. You got to face the financials. You got to face the production. And instead of hiding and not making decisions, you got to make quick decisions, because it doesn't take too long for a small business to get in trouble.
Absolutely right. No, I agree.
And what is it statistically? You may know, Monty. I think any business below 5 million or 3 million, 97% of them after 5 years are gone.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of people, it gets back to the same thing. I think we all go through it, is you go through a hard time and you're not going back to the truth. You're kind of putting your head in the sand and you're just moving forward because you think you've done it before. Next thing, you're a year later and you look back on your financials, you're like, something's got to change, or it's going to break.
Live in truth. I mean, again, that's part of the transparency amongst management. That's part of transparency amongst your people. And that all comes back to one foundational aspect: trust in your organization, right? If you don't have trust, it's really, really hard to live in truth. It's very hard.
And do you drill into core values and mission and vision?
Yeah, yes, and all that stuff is important. But, where we live, again, is we start with people, right? So if you start with people, that's going to drive customer success typically, right? Which is going to drive financial success. And if you don't start with people, the foundation of any good relationship with a person, I don't care if it's your spouse, I don't care if it's your best friend, I don't care if it's your parents, is trust. It's trust, right? It's a natural human emotion that we have to have. I have to trust you to trust Monty. I have to trust people in order to do good, solid decisions, make good, solid decisions with folks. And again, if it's bad news, that's okay. And I think what we've stressed, or what I've seen in organizations that run really, really, really well, is we were able to build trust quickly amongst the team, where people can bring us bad news, right? And that's okay, right? Hey, here's how we're going to manage it together, right? And so having that very, very solid foundation will allow you to move quickly, right? You're putting the cart in front of the horse if you just think you're going to walk into a business day one, right, and say, all right, here's the decision. I made super fast decisions. Here's what we're going to do, and here's the direction we're going, and let's go. I think that is the exact not thing to do, right? It's showing up daily, understanding your people, communicating with your people, building that ground layer of trust. Again, that compounds over time. Live in the truth, right? Again, could be really good news, could be really bad news. Understanding those kind of key things. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but the 3 to 5 things that are really driving your business, communicating that amongst your people transparently. That's what's driving business success. That's what's allowed us to be successful in a relatively short period of time.
I love everything you're saying. This is just this fantastic information. I want to come back to the people side, starting with people. What do you look for in great employees? What do you look for? What do you hire for? And how do you attract that?
Yeah. So people is the hardest part of any business, just flat out. What we look for is highly motivated people that fit our culture, right? I am very much under the impression that people learn skills. Motivated people learn skills. They will, right? So I don't need to hire, you look down all these job descriptions that people post online, LinkedIn, whatever, and it's like, I got to have a CPA, I got to have a whatever, for some position, right? And you look at that and you say, gosh, okay, so there's probably, 2% of the population that fits that job description as it's written. Yeah. Are you really looking for a needle in the haystack? Our philosophy has always been, hey, lead with good people, right? So they have to have integrity, they have to want to work hard, and they have to want to do it as a team. Right? And if you have those solid foundations in your business, I can teach you how to manage a P&L. I can teach you what numbers are important in the business. What I can't teach? I can't teach having somebody stay until 6:15 because there's a problem on their desk that they're not leaving until they solve. Can't teach that.
Right.
Right? And so having and finding that is a skill that's built over time. You're going to make some bad hires,
Yep.
right? We have made some bad hires, right? But understanding, right, and starting to hear people talking about it, I'm quick to trust people. Some people are slow. I'm quick to trust people, right? I want people to succeed in my organization. I'm going to give you as much responsibility as you want, right? And I don't want to take that away, right? That's a burden on me. But again, people come in. Our interview process we barely ask any technical questions. It's all about who you are as a person.
Right.
It's all about what your beliefs are, and it's all about how you think you can help our organization with your skill set. And what I love is when we come in and people say, "Look, I don't care if I'm sweeping the floor. You tell me what you need, and we'll figure out a way to do it." And we have a few of those folks in our organization. And again, that's allowed us to give them responsibilities that aren't technically in their job description, but it's jobs that need to be done. Guess what? These people will move mountains to get that done. Mm-hmm. That's what's driving the business forward.
So I love that you shared what you look for. And I want to take it to another place of how you have grown. As you went from working private equity to owning your own business and really making that transition. Where did you have to grow? What did you have to do to think differently? What did you have to do to really go to that next level to make sure that you had the capabilities to get there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I am very fortunate in my career that at a relatively young age, I was able to be around and see people operate at a very high level. I've had a lot of mentors in my career that have spent an inordinate amount of time with me, that have just said, hey, look, Andrew, if you're going to be successful, here's the 3 things that you got to do. Here's the 3 things you got to work on. So for me personally, I'm very open to feedback. And by the way, it's 360 feedback. It is hyper important, I believe, as a leader to not only understand, hey, if it's your boss, and in my case, I'm reporting to my business partner, but also getting feedback from your people. Hey, what am I doing that works? What am I doing that isn't working? So I've had to change a lot of things about me, moving out of a very fast-paced environment that's all about growth into a business of our own that we're trying to build for a sustainable period, right? We're trying to build a sustainable, long-term business that's much less focused on quarterly results. That's much more focused on results that's going to happen in 5 to 10 years from now. Mm-hmm. So as part of that mindset shift, a lot of this has been, hey, this skill set that I've developed across 10 years, I can apply a lot of those skills, right? But I'm also, I'm a pretty emotional, passionate guy, as you guys can see. Mm-hmm. And so some of that is, hey, how do we tone that down a little bit? How do we become, more of a steady state leader where, hey, good news, bad news, you're kind of staying in this bandwidth level versus, some of these emotional highs and lows of business ownership. That's been a big adjustment for me. And a lot of times, you just have to hear the truth. Again, live in truth, accept the feedback, right? Understand, hey, when I'm emotional, guess what's going to project onto my staff? Guess what's going to project onto my people, right? And so harnessing at times, the big wins, the bad losses, things like that are much easier said than done. My wife would tell you that sometimes I get home and I'm spent from the day, and a lot of that is because I'm managing myself for my people.
What a great comment, Monte. I don't know if you ever heard Brandon Dawson, a great quote from Brandon Dawson. He always said that never be emotional about business. The only time you get emotional is when you win and you celebrate and you get excited. But business is business, and dealing with the truth. If you deal with the truth and stay unemotional, you'll be fine. But when you win, you get emotional. But you never get in business, which is tough because I have some of the same diseases you do. I'm passionate. I have frustration when I see something when I can't believe somebody else hasn't seen it in the business, and you're frustrated, which gets back to the same thing. That means you got to become a better leader, a better business person to bring those people up to where they need to be.
Well, and a big benefit, I think, again, being in an organization is you get to surround yourself with people that, especially being a leader of an organization, you can surround yourself with people that, support you, what you're good at, which is great. But it's also people that you want to work with, and
Mm-hmm.
a huge part, I think, of our success is, if you're not a culture fit, you're not going to fit in our organization, right? And again, skills and motivation. If I'm providing you good tools and you have high motivation, you're going to learn a lot of skills in our organization that's going to help us drive forward. But, it helps me a lot being around people that, again, are counter to me. So my business partner is a great example. He is, the one word I would use to describe him, calm, right? That's not a word I would use to describe myself, And so, but again, surrounding yourself with people like that helps manage emotion, right? Again, I am, when it comes to detail work, can I do it? Yes. Am I the best at it? No. So surrounding myself with people who are good at that have the same foundational layer of values, right? Integrity is really high, really important in our organization. That is, kind of key qualities that you can surround yourself with people that are going to, again, help you manage whatever you're trying to manage for yourself. But that's been a big growth point for me. My hair is on fire all the time, as you guys can probably tell. I mean, part of the reason, again, I say speed is an advantage. There are times in business where taking a breath is a good thing, and I am pedal to the metal 100% of the time, right? Always. And a lot of that stems from, again, past of grow, or, hey, we don't have time to worry about this stuff. But, understanding and learning that, driving people to their limits 100% of the time is hard on an organization, right? And when you're trying to manage to a successful result or an outcome, like in private equity, as an example, the ultimate successful outcome is an exit, right? It's like hey, we're going to run really hard for 5 years, and then we're going to sell and go vacation in Tahiti or wherever you're going to go or whatever, or you're going to move on to the next thing, versus, again, building a sustaining organization across the decades and decades and decades. It's, hey, we can't go 100 miles an hour 100% of the time. There's times that we have to throttle that.
Well, what a great tell that you just brought up. What is really critical, what I just heard from you, Andrew, I don't know that we've had anybody articulated what he just said, because what he just said is exactly what I do. I see that goal and I see that opportunity, and I go 100 miles an hour. And I think everybody else should be driven. You run your organization that way, you burn people out. And I think sometimes you can't be in overdrive all the time. Sometimes you got to go to first gear to second gear to third gear before you go to overdrive. And be honest with you, and I'm sure most small businesses would rather knock the ceiling off as to go on vacation. I mean, we want to go and meet those goals and get through that, break through that ceiling. And you don't mind going on vacation, but really, reality, I'd rather stretch it out and break through the ceiling. And what ends up, the effect of that is your organization will sometimes get a setback because you burn everybody out. And I've done that over and over again with employees. But slowing it up a little bit, which also gets, when you have a partner, sometimes that can help you.
Well, and again, I continually remind myself this every day. Business is a marathon, right? If you're going to be doing this for 40, 50 years, it's about sustainability, and I know you guys have talked about this on past episodes, but it's about work-life integration. Again, people talk about work-life balance. I'm the worst at that. It's work-life integration for our family. But it's doing it in a sustainable way that allows you to, again, move fast, make quick decisions, do all the things that we've talked about that can build business success. Has to be sustainable. And again, for some people, sustainability means I can work 10, 12 hours a day and that doesn't bother me. For other people, it's, hey, I can do that for some period of time, right? And again, that comes back to, as a leader, I have to know my people and I have to manage to my people. What are their capabilities? What are they good at? What can they accomplish in what period of time? And again, understanding what drives them, that's what's going to help drive our business forward.
To that point, you and I were talking earlier about, and I'm going to call this one of your principles that you live by, is how you set goals and where you're going. You're not just thinking about doubling the business, you're thinking about 10xing the business. Tell us about that philosophy and how that changes the way that you approach your business.
Yeah, no, it's a great comment. So pretty early on in my career, I had a CEO that I was working with at the time that said, Andrew, if you build processes to double your business, you're going to do that. That's what you're going to do. You'll double your business, and then things are going to break. If you build systems and processes to 10x your business, that's what you'll do. You'll 10x your business. So stop thinking how you're thinking and think big, right? That was his advice to me, which was, again, sage advice for a 25-year-old at the time. Yeah. But So that's exactly how we think. So how do I build systems and processes in our business today that will stand the test of time? Now, again, impossible task, right? Where you're always going to find things in your business that you didn't account for, didn't think about. But again, thinking through that lens, hey, whatever it is, billing, great example. Hey, I'm going to process, how do I process 10 times more invoices today than I did yesterday, right? Thinking through production. Hey, how do I produce 10 times more widgets than I did yesterday? How do I service 10 times more toilets than I did yesterday, right? And building systems, having everybody in your organization thinking towards that goal, right? Of, hey, we're not going to double this business, we're going to 10x it. And when people are coming to me with ideas, listening, hey, here's 2 things we could do to optimize. Here's 3 things we could do to optimize. Hey, I've heard about this piece of software. Should we look into that? We live in an age now where, again, business moves quickly. Part of that is AI driven. How do we utilize these, again, tools in our organization that allows us to scale without adding overhead?
Okay, Andrew, here's a question for you. You're talking about, 2x, 10x. I love that. Grant Cardone has a book out there that talks about the 10x rule, and I think a lot of people have read that. So what does it look like in your company when you're going to talk about 10x in the company? Who's in the room that you're talking to? Are you feeding that from the top to the bottom, or how do you show? Could you explain, and so we can visualize how that works? And then, you want to 10x that. How transparent are you with revenues with your staff, and who's involved with that?
Again, comes back to trust. So we are very transparent with our people. So we do quarterly town hall meetings. We go through what the vision of the company is, right? Communicating from the top, hey guys, right? Our vision is 10 locations by 2025, right? Or 10 locations by 2030, whatever that is, right? And, as an example, so part of our organization today is how do we get from 2 locations to 10 locations by 2030, right? So, that's the vision. Developing the strategy around that and communicating that strategy to people, right? We have 3 main strategies at Best Portable Toilets, right? Expand the fleet, expand geographically, provide high quality, reliable service. Those 3 things. We communicate those 3 things daily to our people, right? Part of my job is being the chief reminding officer, right? Our president's that way, right? I'm that way. Everybody on our leadership team is that way, right? Of continually repeating the vision, the values to our people, right? And that drives, right? Structure follows strategy, right? And so that's the strategy. So now we can build structure around what we're trying to accomplish when everybody's rowing in the same direction, right? So here's our organization today. Here's where we want it to be by some set date. Again, how are we measuring those key things, right? Keeping everybody accountable, right? Transparently talking about it. Hey, we missed the mark here, right? That should be an okay thing. If you have somebody in your organization that's hiding bad news, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing.
So this, you're relaying this and communicating this from the truck driver on up to the CEO.
That's exactly right.
And then, do you talk openly about revenues, your gross revenues, or how does that?
When we do our quarterly town hall meetings, and again, quarterly we're bringing everybody together. Monthly, we're talking with many of our we'll call it functional units, and then weekly, we're talking with all of our leaders, right? So that's how we're structuring it. But when we're talking with our whole company, we put together, again, a town hall slide deck that talks about wins from the quarter, what's coming up next quarter, what were the financial results? Did we win? Did we lose? We measure ourselves. And again, you're trying to accomplish a goal. Hey, I want to lose 10 pounds. Well, how do you know you're going to lose 10 pounds if you don't weigh yourself? Dead. So it's the same thing. Hey, we want to grow the organization. Hey, we grew 20%. Here's what that meant, right? Here's how many heads that we added. Here's how many trucks we added. Here's the assets that we bought. All of that stuff, super important for people to understand. And I think in my career, what I found is, of course, is there going to be times where people are just like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize we were that big, thinking about me, I, right? What we stress is team, right? How do we win and lose as a team? How do we win and lose based on trust in an organization, right? And again, a lot of this stuff is pretty simple stuff. It's showing up on a daily basis as a leader. It's communicating with your people. It's all these things that we talk about all the time, but are very, very, very hard to execute over a long period of time consistently at a high level.
You know, I love your passion, and what a great interview today. I love the clarity that you give and the specifics that you talk about, because that people that are listening to this and our achievers and the fans out there appreciate digging right in there and being in the clarity in what we've heard today. I loved it. I learned some from it.
Yeah, this is a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I want to reinforce a few things that you said, because you had some great quotes, you had some great statements that I think are powerful. Structure follows strategy. And you got to have clarity of where you're headed, what you're doing, how you're going to win, and then you structure. And you structure for that 10x. You don't just structure to double your business or grow 10%. You've got to structure for the big picture, the long term. And I love, and then you focus on 3 to 5 things that really matter to get there. It's that routine, and then you share it with your team quarterly. You share it with your team, what your goals are, what you're reinforcing the vision, the mission, and the values. So I just love how you shared the story, and I know you're going to be a great success in your business because of all those things, and it's fun to watch and fun to hear. So any other learnings you want to share, Paul?
No, I love the fact of making quick decision, people, culture, great stuff. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. Last thing I'll say before I leave here is I would challenge all of the business leaders that are watching this today, provide more opportunities for your young people, right? I talk to a ton of people my age. Again, I'm 34, so I'm a relatively young guy, I think. But challenge your young people, right? How do you put them in positions to succeed? But really, it's going to be hard for my generation to pick this stuff up if we don't have opportunity. And so again, I was very fortunate early in my career where I had the ability to watch and learn from people that execute at a very high level every day. So I understood what it takes. Give young people that opportunity, and I think you'll be surprised.
Absolutely. One question we always like to ask our guests as we part is, what do you want to be known for?
Yeah, it's a great question. So again, I'm a simple guy, lead a relatively simple life, but faith, family, people. That's really the 3 things. Man of God. Love my 2 kids, 3 and 1. My wife, she's a saint. She allows me to do what I do on a daily basis, and she puts up with me, which again, in and of itself can be a challenge on some days. But the reason I do this is not for a paycheck. I view the financial part of this as really the scoreboard. I do this for people, helping people succeed. I could share a number of stories within our own business of folks that have bought a house for the first time, bought that car that they really wanted, went on that vacation that they really wanted. But doing this for the people. So I hope that in 30 years we've built a business that, people look at this organization and they say, wow, look at how far they've come. But above all else, the people at that business are exceptional.
I love it.
Great.
Love it. Hey, thank you for joining us, Andrew. This has been a fantastic conversation. Love learning about you and what you do and how you're influencing business, how you're influencing your people. And I want to encourage our achiever to make sure that hopefully you've taken a lot of notes and you're going to put these things into practice. So thanks for joining us today, and continue to break through your ceilings. Thanks for joining us.